friends, this is Mika. Welcome or welcome back to Unipod Rising. I'm going to begin by thanking George and Melissa for their questions because at least a portion of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be in the effort to answer their questions. So I'm going to go with Melissa's question first because it's factual and much more of a quick hit to respond to. How do I make this thing stop making noise? Do not disturb my friends. So there we go. Do not disturb. So Melissa's question was in regards to my first video and the mention of there being 3 separate accidents. So she wanted to know if there were actually 3 separate incidents, and the answer is yes. So the first and third were about 10.5 years apart. I'm not sure when the second one happened because, as I mentioned in the first video, it wasn't severe, and so it didn't stick. So much so that for years I've been saying I was hit by a truck 2 separate times, and it took my sister I don't know how many times of reminding me that it was actually 3 times before it stayed in my brain. So the first time I was 18 and I was driving down the road to school actually, and there was an 18-wheeler. I was on a road that was 2 lanes in either direction. I was in the right lane, and in the left lane going the same way was a semi-truck, an 18-wheeler. And as I was kind of approaching and getting nearby him, he started to kind of swing left, and he went actually into like oncoming traffic. And I remember thinking, even now I remember thinking, he's gonna hurt somebody. Like, it frightened me. And then all of a sudden, he started taking a right-hand turn. So I guess, I don't know, he needed to make a wide turn, and in the transition of that, did not consider that there could be a car in the right lane next to him that would not be expecting him to turn right from the left lane. Well, there I was, and there we were, and he turned right, and in that moment I realized the person that he was going to injure was going to be me. And I was driving, that car, I loved that car. I had a 1970 Cadillac that was like Pepto-Bismol pink for the body, and the roof was white. And thank goodness, because that car was a tank, and probably the reason why I'm even talking to you now in regard to that particular accident. So he had turned right. I had noticed that he had turned right. The driveway into the business park that he was turning into was fairly wide, and I could see that he was going to be to the left of that, and that there was some room that if somehow I can maneuver the car to turn with him, it was the only way to avoid an accident. So I tried to kind of mitigate things, and then I realized that all that was doing was putting me on an angle, because there really was not enough time to stop or even slow down sufficiently to take that turn properly, even if there was enough room for me there. So, meaning enough room beside him to like somehow like take the turn with him. But I was driving like 40 or 45 miles an hour, and it happened like that. So there really wasn't enough time to slow down. So in the process of that, what ended up happening was that as he turned, I was coming in, essentially, we were coming at each other at what would be an angle. And so I ended up under the 18-wheeler, the car ended up wedged. And when I saw that I wasn't going to be able to stop an accident from happening, I thought, well, the only thing I'm going to end up, I noticed at the bottom, this is hard to explain. I noticed that the bottom of the trailer was at the height of my face, essentially, my head. That the top of the vehicle was going to get smashed up and that I needed to duck. So I took my hands off the wheel. I actually put my left hand on the very bottom of the steering wheel. I put my foot on the brake. And once I kind of saw the trajectory that I was going in, I thought, I want to make sure that I'm maintaining that, because at least right now I know what's going to happen fairly well. So I held on to the bottom of the steering wheel to maintain the position of the car. I wrapped my arm like this around my head to bring my hand to the left side, and then I laid across the bench seat of the Cadillac. Thank you for having a bench seat. And I waited. I heard the crash. I felt the car stop to move. I waited till it was stopped for, I don't know. I have no perception of the timeline, but until I felt secure that the accident, that the impact and the movement was over. And then I reached up and put the car in park. It has the shifter like on the steering wheel, or had. And then I crawled out the passenger side, because the driver's side, what had happened, I'm looking for a piece of paper here to show you. Excuse my doodle. So if this is the roof of the vehicle, I'm trying to see if it makes sense. Okay, if this is the roof of the vehicle, the driver's side top of the roof, because I was on an angle, curved in, you know, like those sardine cans in the cartoons, how they like roll. That's basically what happened. So it rolled inward, and this corner hit me right here as I ducked. I didn't feel it at the time, but there was a hole in my leather jacket. I wore leather back then. I don't do that anymore. But it was, I had glass all in my clothes and whatever. It was crazy. It was bananas. And I ended up not going to the hospital because I was like, nah, I'm fine. I just want to go home. I went to work that night, and a friend of mine ran in because he had, I guess, seen the car. I don't know how or why, but he had seen the car, and of course he knew whose it was. So he came running into my workplace to see if anybody knew what was going on, and he saw me there, and he was like, "What are you doing here? I thought you were dead." Which I didn't process until a day or two later when I went to see the vehicle and I saw what had happened, and like my knees actually buckled under me and I nearly fell. My boyfriend at the time like caught me, luckily. But it was so overwhelming. So that was number one. Number two, fender bender, no details. Like somebody rear-ended me essentially. Didn't feel great, was sore, you know, the whole neck thing. I already have injuries, so it wasn't wonderful, but didn't really ping. And then this third time, which was just shy of 17 years ago, that cost me my leg, my dance career, and shifted the direction of my life. So, Melissa, I hope that answers your question sufficiently. Let me know if you have any other questions in regards to that. I'm always happy to answer anything anybody wants to know about. But that brings me to my next person's question. So George asked me, did you ever ask, why me? Why did this happen to me? And the short answer is yes, I did ask that. But I didn't ask that often. I didn't ask that initially. And I don't ask that today, for sure. But there were periods of time that were so difficult for me to wrap my head around what was going on that I asked why. And part of that came about when things weren't working out, when I was trying to get my prosthetic and things weren't working out, when the prosthetics company that had taken me on as a demo patient and was looking to sponsor me moving forward dropped me because things weren't working out when the newspaper article that was being written about me was no longer going to be followed up on because things weren't going well and what they wanted was a happy story. All of those things made me ask why. Why is this happening? I'm trying so hard. I'm doing everything I can think to do. I'm doing everything I think is the right thing to do. I'm working my face off. So why? Why did this happen to me? I believe there's a purpose, and you're not letting me meet it. You being divinity, God, source, whatever you call it, right? And so in that sense, I did ask that question, and that happened over different periods of time when I was super frustrated. So yes, the short answer, or the medium length answer, is yes, and those are the instances why. But I want to talk more importantly about why I haven't spent most of my time there and how I avoid that line of thinking. I don't even think I avoid it anymore, quite frankly. I think I don't really know how to explain it. I think let me start at the beginning and maybe it'll make sense. So when the accident happened, I remember just about everything in pretty strong detail. I had pretty severe PTSD, and I actually relived the accident over and over and over, like thousands of times a day for quite a bit of time before I decided that I was going to go ahead and take medication for PTSD and take the pharmaceutical assistance to control something that I was not able at the time to control. So I think the continued repetition of that movie has it so ingrained in my brain that I don't anticipate I'll ever forget the details. So I'll share it a little bit here so you have some perspective of how it happened from my view, right? So I was on a motorcycle. I was going to work. I took the motorcycle that day because my car was in the shop. And I had a Krav Maga class that morning. So I'd gone home, I'd taken a shower, and I'd gotten ready. And my boyfriend at the time, he and I lived together, was like, come on, let's go. I got to get to work. Come with me, I'll drive you. And I said, no, I don't want to rush. I'm hungry. I need something to eat. And I'll just take the bike. So he left. And I did what I needed to do. I got on the bike. I headed out. And not 2 miles from the house, which is like dead on for statistics, right? Not 2 miles from the house is where the accident happened. And I was this time on a road that had one lane in either direction. There was a subdivision on my right-hand side. There was a very large pickup truck that was at the stop sign coming out of the subdivision. And and I'm using his words, okay? These are not my words. This is not about judgment or anything else. This is straight up what he said. He was not paying attention. And so he stopped at the stop sign and then he pulled out. And he was kind of, I guess, on autopilot is what he meant by not paying attention. And he wasn't being very mindful of his surroundings. So he didn't see me. He didn't hear me when I honked. He didn't notice when I was trying to swing left to avoid being hit by him. None of that processed through his brain, and he didn't snap into things until he had hit me. So he was actually accelerating when he hit me. So I saw him start to pull out, and I thought, what is this guy doing? And I went through the whole process. Okay, honk the horn. He'll hear you and he'll hit his brake and you'll swing around him. So I honked the horn and he didn't pay attention. I do it like this, but it's really like this on a motorcycle. Then he, since he kept moving, I thought, okay, swing as far left, keep honking, and swing as far left in the lane as you can so that there's optimal amount of time to stop, because it's a really big truck. And so there really wasn't enough room for me to swing behind him once he pulled out. Like, there wasn't time for that. There wasn't room for that. It just wasn't playing out. So my only hope was to swing left, hold the horn, hope he noticed in time that I could just swing around him, keep on going, and then ask myself, what the hell, Louisiana Sunshine, was that? But that's not how it happened. I noticed he wasn't going to stop, and I had nowhere else to go. So I literally, my brain, the thought was, oh well, here goes. And then bam. So he T-boned me, and like I said, he was accelerating at the time. I was ejected from the bike. I flew through the air. In the moment of impact, visually everything is black. I didn't see that part, or my brain did not hold on to that. It blocked it, and I have no need or want to unblock that. So I'm fine with that being a black spot in the memory bank. Then as I started to fly, I remember I was like sideways, right? My right side of my body was towards the ground, and I was flying, and when I landed on my head. I was wearing a helmet. I landed on the top of my head, and then my body just kind of went and I was laying on my back on the road. And my first feeling was extreme anger. I was so mad because I was like, how did that just happen? Like, how did he not see me? I don't even understand. Not a cloud in the sky, nothing in between us that obscured his view. I later learned, in his words, he wasn't paying attention, but in that moment, I couldn't even grasp how that had happened. It made no sense to me, and I was really angry. But I also knew that I needed to slow down my heart rate, because when I turned my head to the right and when I turned my head to the left, there were literally like pieces of my flesh. And so I knew it was bad. And then I looked downwards toward my leg, and I couldn't see past my thigh because it was so engorged. The back of my thigh, and then everything around my knee and down my leg all the way to the edge of my boot had been degloved, meaning my skin was splayed open. I never saw it. My family has seen pictures. I never went in and looked at it. I've been curious at times, but I don't know. Maybe one day I will. So far, I haven't felt the need to see that. But I knew things were bad. And as I lay on the ground, because I was angry, I knew I had to release that and start to calm myself. So I made a very conscious decision. I took I took the fullest breath I could take in. And then I gave myself one yell. I was like, get it out, get the anger out, and start to calm down. So I inhaled as deeply as I could, and then I let out what was probably, to other people, sounded like a primal scream. I don't know what it sounded like to anybody else, but it was cathartic for me. And once I had done that, I said, okay, time to slow it all down. At that point, people started running up to me. The guy who hit me started running in, and I just said, can I borrow your phone? Actually, I think the first thing I said was, I'm being burned, because the ground, the road had just been paved. It was super, super dark tar that had just barely been laid, like maybe a month before. It was June 6th in Texas with not a cloud in the sky. The sun was way up in the sky, beaming down on the ground, and you could cook a human, quite frankly, on the ground. And that's what was happening. So I was getting burned by the ground while that was all going on. So I'm trying to get a balance of giving you an idea of the situation without getting like all mired in it, because I want to get to the point of why it worked. So I'm going to stop with the details. If you want to know more details, let me know. I'll come back. I'll do another video separately, and I'll go back to this story and tell you step by step further how things played out. But here's the point of it all. I was very aware. I asked to borrow somebody's phone. 911 was busy. I had to wait until that was done, until somebody got through, and they said an ambulance was on the way. And so once that was done, I said, I need to borrow the phone. Can I borrow somebody's phone? I want to call my mother. I did not want her to get this news from a police officer or a hospital, because I just can't imagine that. That's got to be so scary for somebody. And I thought it was important that she heard, one, I'm alive, and two, I'm capable of actually speaking to you. So I was hoping that would give her enough peace that she would not, I don't know, I don't even know what, I was just hoping it would give her some sense of peace. So I made the call. I told her where I was. She got there as they were putting me into the ambulance. She wasn't very far, and I had to wait a little while for the ambulance too. But while I was laying on the ground, I was staring up. I remember looking at the sky, and I had what I call a knowing. Some people call it a message, some people call it a download. In that particular sense, it was a knowing. I didn't hear a voice or anything like that. I just knew. And the message was, you're going to lose your leg. I just knew. My leg was done. And there was no panic in that moment. There was no anything. There was just the knowing, and it was just a matter of, it is what it is. And I accepted that to be the case. So initially, there was no why me or anything like that. When I woke up at, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning after surgery in the hospital, the first surgery, my mom was sitting next to me, and she was the one who had the misfortune of telling me that I had indeed lost my leg. It was a really difficult thing for my family, because they knew what dance meant to me. They knew I had built my entire life around dance, and that this was going to be life-changing in a way that was going to be devastating to me. So I to this day feel emotional when I think about that. I'm actually trying not to tear up, because I hate that my family went through that. Ooh-ah. I promised I'd be authentic, and authentically, I'm an emotional person. Give me a second, please. So, as okay as I was with the fact that I was losing my leg, or that I had lost my leg, from one perspective, I was devastated for my family for being put in the situation. Initially they were asked to make a decision about amputating my leg or not, and in the end it became a matter of life and death. And so it was no longer an option. Saving my leg was not an option, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, because that means my family, beyond the time from when they were asked to make the decision and the time that they were informed that it wasn't actually a decision or an option to save my leg, beyond that period of time, which had to be so difficult, whew, I'm feeling it right now. Beyond that, they've never had to carry the guilt or the burden of having to make a decision to have my leg amputated. So I live in a lot of gratitude for that.
And my tears right now aren't sad tears. I'm just 17 years later, it's still such a relief to me that they didn't have to suffer that all these years, because that would be quite a weight to carry. So, collecting myself and moving on. So, in the hospital, it was interesting because people would come and they'd be devastated, right? They'd be devastated because they knew I'd built my entire life around dance and that I loved it, that I had an absolute passion for it, that I enjoyed doing the action, the physical exercise of dancing, right? The experience of it, the sharing of it, the teaching of it, the coaching, the creation of routines through choreography. They knew I loved every bit of that. And so it was really difficult for people who cared about me to face that. So difficult, in fact, that some people left my life after that accident. And that was a difficult thing for me to swallow, because I took that as a reflection of my value, and really what it was is a reflection of their ability to cope with what they saw as immense tragedy. And so I hold no ill will towards anybody who is not able to stay in the environment. And certainly down the road, when I got to the point where I was mad about it, and I did get to the point where it hit me, you know, I'm not sick, I'm gonna get better. This is how life is now, and certain things are never going to go back to what they were, and I have to let things that I love go. And so there were points where I was angry, there were points where I was disappointed, and where I said the whole why me thing. But in the grand scheme of it, for the vast majority of the 17 years from that moment of impact to today, I haven't been plagued by why me, because I knew that there was a purpose, and I knew that there was something to the experiences I had had up until that point. I had a difficult time growing up. My father was extraordinarily abusive. My family had some really bad programming. Even the good people, excuse me, I'm still recovering from my emotion. Even the really wonderful, well-meaning, well-intentioned people who tried to guide me, sometimes they shared with me what they knew, and it wasn't right for me. And frankly, it never worked for them either, but we know what we know, and we teach from that space. And so, whatever, right? Again, no ill will, no blame, no nothing. Everybody does the best they can with what they have. So, I knew that I was meant to do something with this. I knew that because of the difficulties I'd had and had overcome, because of the fact that I was able to create something in my life that I wanted, right, which was a career in the world of dance, where I got to have some of the most amazing experiences, you guys. Like, there were times in my life that I stopped in the moment, and I would just stand back and I would just observe what was happening around me and the environment I was in and the experience I was having. And I would just really take time to be grateful in the moment for the fact that I was living through a dream. Like, some of it was things you see in the movies. Like, who gets to live these moments? I did. And I will forever hold those moments in gratitude and awe. And so it's natural for us to ask, why me? But here's the thing. You can ask why me from the victim standpoint, or you can ask why me from the point of empowerment. Because everything happens for a reason. Everything guides you. And I spent a bunch of time saying, maybe if I had shifted things in my life, because I had things that I wasn't happy with and I wasn't making the changes I needed to make, in a large part I was putting other people ahead of myself and staying places because people asked me to when I told them I didn't want to be there. And life, the universe, God, source, whatever. Look, I call it source most often. So that's what you'll hear. I'm going to try to stop going through all the names. Just assume when I say source, you can put your own name into it, whatever your title is for the force that creates life and creates worlds and is goodness and love and light, whatever that is to you, insert your own word, name, whatever. Okay? Cool. So, I believe that we're all here for a reason, that we, the soul, our true self, right? Because this body is just, it's a suit, it's a vehicle that we use to experience life on this plane. But we are so much more than this body. I'm not this body. I'm using this body currently to experience life, like I said, on this plane, on this earth, in this particular way. But who I am is so much more expansive than that. And in meditation and mindfulness and certain religions or theologies or philosophies, it's considered, you hear the term higher self, right? So the best version of yourself that you are outside of this particular experience, right? What you aspire to be, what you are at the core, and what you will always be at the core. I have come here for a reason, and my soul chose this particular set of experiences because there is something that I am intended to fulfill. There's a purpose for me to meet. And I can't be angry or regretful of situations that have brought me to where I am, because clearly it's what I needed. I did not listen to my own soul, to the callings of my soul, when it came time to change directions or change places or whatever it was. I needed to make some shifts in my life, and I wasn't making them, and I wasn't happy. And because I didn't get on the path, I was propelled by a truck onto the path. I had to shift. I had no choice anymore. And so, no regrets. I'm contemplating that terminology because here's the thing. My human self would have liked to learn the lessons without being hit by that truck and losing my leg, without losing dance, without losing the things that meant so much to me. But I also know that had I been able to do that, I would have. But I didn't have the capacity, and I needed to be put in a position where I was essentially forced into factory reset mode. And it brought me to here because I started meditating, I started looking within, I started uncovering the things that I needed to uncover, finding my own strength, seeing where I stood in my way time and time and time again, seeing where energetically I just wasn't standing in a place of empowerment that allowed me to have what I wanted. And what I want is, at the core, to continue to work towards being my very best self, to have a positive impact in the world, to touch the people who I come into contact with in a positive way, as often as possible. It's not always possible. Sometimes I rub people the wrong way. Sometimes I say the wrong thing. Sometimes I do the wrong thing. I'm not going to stop making mistakes. But the difference is now I accept that that's okay, and that's part of the process, and that every experience, even if it's unpleasant for me or unpleasant for whoever I'm dealing with, which is unintentional, right? I don't purposely hurt people. It's just not. I think for most of us, we don't purposely hurt people. I've come to understand that I don't have to be perfect to move forward. So I'm doing these videos because I'm not thrilled with my physical form. No question, right? I can see that I'm older than I was 20 years ago. I can see that I have loose, fat stuff going on my arms still, despite the fact that I've been losing weight and working my face off, and I got muscles. I've got the muscles underneath, right? But I haven't finished leaning out. So whatever, right? My body's not what it was. Whatever. So what? Like, what does that mean about my value as a human being? Nothing. I am no more or less valuable when I am 100% fit than I am when I am. I was 50 pounds heavier than I am right now. I have my waist back. My stomach is getting flatter, but it's got stuff on it. Like, whatever. Like, that's why I'm not living my life. Like, that's why I'm not driving forward to what I believe is intended for me. That's why I sit in some stupid sense of shame. Why do we do this? Why do we do this to ourselves? I'm not doing it anymore. I know I totally got off track from the conversation, and maybe I'll need to come back and revisit the whole question George asked me. I don't know, or expand upon it, but this is how I'm going to end this video, because this is where I flowed to, and I am going with my flow. I'm on a river towards everything, on a stream towards everything I've ever wanted, and if it takes me somewhere, I'm going with it. And this is where it's taken me. So here's how I'm going to finish this. Every one of us, every single one of us, comes here to learn and to grow. Every single one of us wants, needs, and deserves to feel joy. We will not feel joy 100% of the time, but most of the time, when we feel things that are unpleasant, when we sit in discomfort, in judgment, in fear, in whatever feels bad to us in that moment, depression, most of those things, and I won't say depression, let's say sadness, because depression is a medical condition. It's a physiological thing. It's a physiological imbalance, sometimes brought on by trauma of some sort, loss of some sort, sometimes strictly just a matter of our physiology. And we need to understand that and deal with that as it is. But the other stuff, the sadness, the fear, the judgment, the discontent, most of the time when we feel that, it's because we have kept ourselves in alignment to that negative thought process. So we think something, or we remember something somebody said to us, or we hear something societally that is a judgment of something that we feel we are. Too fat, my skin is imperfect, right? I've been in the sun a lot, and you can tell but I'm not going to stop swimming. I like to swim outside. I put the lotions on. I do what I need to do. Whatever. Right? My teeth aren't fully straight. Like, whatever. I have this thing. I've always had this, even when I was thin. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I've never liked it. But it is what it is. And it has nothing to do with the value of who I am as a human being. So remember that for yourself. The next time you find yourself isolating yourself, holding yourself back, standing in your own way because you don't feel good about something based on the judgments or potential judgments of others, or the things that other people have said to you, that because you are not fit right now, because you are not perfectly complected, because whatever, because of those things somehow you are less worthy or unworthy, it's bull. I swear in my regular everyday life, but I'm trying not to on these videos out of respect for the people who are offended by it. I generally have no issue with an occasional curse word. I say cuss now because I've been in Texas for long enough, I guess. My point is this. I babble. That wasn't my point. I babble a lot. But my point is this. We are here to meet our purpose, and we are here to do it in the most joyful, pleasant way possible. We will meet with things that are challenging to us. We will have painful experiences. We will come to places where we feel stuck. And when you feel stuck, let me tell you what's happening. You have tied yourself down to a thought, a negative idea, a negative belief that you continue to reinforce for yourself. Time and time and time again. You continue to judge yourself or to worry about others judging you. And that is what's got you in the rut. Unhitch your wagon from that BS and get on with it. Get on with it. It's not as simple necessarily as like turning and unhitching and moving. You may have some work to do to get there, but that should be your goal. Decide that you will find a way to unhitch from the wagon of the negativity and the BS and the judgments that have held you back from what you are here to do. And know that the vast majority of your life is meant to be joyful and fun. And if you're not joyful and if you're not having fun, you're not in alignment with your purpose and the meaning of your life, and you need to figure out what's holding you back. So find yourself a life coach if you need to. Find yourself an amazing friend. Listen to motivational things. Read great books. Find ways to align yourself to you, because you're already amazing. You already have everything you need. We'll get there. Step by step, roll by roll, hop by hop, whatever you need to do. We'll get there. All right, I think that's a good place to leave it off. This video was a lot longer than I intended. I'm not gonna apologize. You either tune in or you don't. But know this. I love you guys. Even those of you I don't know. Because I know that whether I know you or not, whether we are friends or not, that you are doing the best you can to deal with what life has brought to you, and that you are well-intentioned, and that what you want is good things, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And so I hope to say a thing or two every once in a while that helps you remember that you're a powerful beast of a human being, and that you can do those things that you feel drawn to. If you feel like you're meant to fix something, it's because you're meant to be part of the solution. So don't hold yourself back from that, and don't hold yourself back from joy, and don't hold yourself back from experiencing life in the best way possible. That's it. Toodles!